Jake, you did a thing with Mason Graham. We're going to roll some of this. Take us through what you see when you look at Mason Graham.
We talk through some stylistic changes that the Browns have been talking about. Jacques Cesaire, their defensive line coach, brought this up. It caught my eye, similar to what Jim Schwartz had to say. So what you're seeing in college is what is known, what they like to do. Now, he went from a very good defensive coordinator in Jesse Minter, who then went to the Chargers and has done well. And then he had Wink Martindale, another NFL defensive coordinator, formerly across the league. But what they like to do was called a read approach. You see him lock the arms out, eyes in the backfield, and read the movement in the backfield. You'll see him work down the line laterally. See the arms locked out, read the flow right here, arms out, locked, shed, disengage at the end. This is a very read-based approach as your defensive tackles work, right? You see those stutter steps a little slower off the line, reading if run, and then I'm gonna adjust course and play upfield off that, right? You see him there again, read, react, shed at the last moment. You'll see another example here probably of playing the same way. So a lot of what he did in college in his last year was very read, react, and play off of it. So he was very good, very adept at reading schemes, getting his arms locked out, bracing, and then adjusting and getting where he needed to go. Again, why I thought he was a top 5 pick and what I liked most about him was that he had a really good feel for schemes teams were throwing at him, how they were trying to block him, and what the approach was going to be situational football wise. But again, you see that locked arm out there, you're kind of holding down your gap and then adjusting accordingly. And sometimes teams will two gap their defensive linemen. And what I mean by that is, hey, we're going to play too high coverage, typically cover 2 or cover 4. That means we're not gapped out. We don't have every player for a gap in the run fit, because this is how teams work. There's a run fit and pass coverage. You got to be able to fit the run to then adjust to fit, play the pass. So long story short, and this is some of the stuff from 2 years ago now where he was a bit more attacking. The Browns have talked about a desire for Mason to play in an attacking way because that's how their defensive line plays. So think, hey, I have a gap, but I want you to shoot that gap and get vertical and play vertical football. Don't think about reading. Just think about pursue upfield and make plays in the backfield. You'll hear Jason Tarver, the linebacker coach, talk about this all the time. The defensive line is creating chaos. Their general theory is on the way to the quarterback, play the run, create vertical chaos, and then from that vertical chaos, we will clean it up. This clean it up phrase is something Tarver and the linebackers talk about all the time. So what he's doing, Mason Graham is doing, is going from a read approach in college, which I think is a very hard thing to do. That's a very tough ask, right? Because you got to get up under the chest plate of offensive linemen, lock them up, and then shed them to make a play. It's difficult to have your eyes in the backfield while dealing with a 300-pound player right in front of you, trying to read where the football is going. So long story short, the adjustment for Mason is going from a read approach to one that doesn't ask him to do that and just asks him to create vertical chaos. I think he will be fine, and I think he will be very good at it because he will be asked to think less and use his natural skills more. The club rip, swim, speed off the snap, his ability to kind of turn that rather large frame and get skinny and create vertical pressure. So it's just a different brand of football, right? Some teams like to keep their defensive linemen anchored near the line of scrimmage to be able to adjust course for running backs, et cetera, et cetera. And then inside of that plan is a little bit of a slower pass rush because you are reading whether it's going to be run or pass initially. So in the course of reading run or pass, you're going to be a little slower vertical to get after the quarterback, but we want to make sure we're gap sound and taking care of everything up front, and then we'll get after the quarterback. Whereas Jim Schwartz, who likes to play press man, who likes to create chaos for the quarterback right off the snap, we want our defensive tackles upfield and creating pressure as quick as we can. And you can see the vision. They know they have an edge threat nonstop in Miles, right? They're trying to get another one they feel really consistently good about, but between Wright, McGuire, and Okoronkwo, they feel like they have a 3-headed monster there that can do some things off of him. But if we can get Mike Hall, who's a snap count menace, who can get vertical, create pass rush immediately. They signed Malik Collins, who I thought was one of the better defensive pass rushing interior players in the free agency class. And then obviously they draft Mason Graham. They feel like, hey, we can create pressure through the middle. We want to create that because the defensive tackle is the closest player to the quarterback. And we think if we can create that with Miles' ability to turn the corner, and if you're going to force quarterbacks to drift, Big number 95 is going to be waiting for you there, right? So that's their theory. And also, they want to turn pass protection away from Miles more often, right? We don't want two people on Miles 70% of the time. Can we reduce that to 50%, 40%? Because teams are worried about our interior pass rushers. Hey, Malik Collins is in and Mason Graham. Those are four hands players. What I mean by that is we can't just have him one-on-one. If we leave Mason Graham one-on-one, that's a tough situation. We need four hands on him. And if you're turning pass protection toward Mason Graham so that the center can help out with the guard on Graham, that usually leads to more islands for the other players around. And that's what they're trying to do, is have so many good players rotating in up front that it just makes pass protection less dictatable, probably the right word, so that you can get Miles into more advantageous situations where either quarterbacks are drifting because there's so much interior push and pressure, or Miles is bending that corner and pushing him up into the interior chaos. So that's the goal. It's a little different approach for Mason than what he's done, but I also think it's one that's much more it's much easier to learn than going from attack to read. If you didn't read in college, I think that would be a different ask. All right. There's a world where Jim Schwartz maybe isn't here forever, and they have to get him back into doing a little more of that because they get a different philosophical approach. That's what I like about Mason Graham, is he is a really complete player. And I am very interested when they turn off the ridiculously challenging portions of the position and let him play fast and let him play instinctual. That's where I think that there's a whole level of production that I think can even uptick from what you liked in college. So a reason I think they loved him, and a big reason why I'm very optimistic that he's going to be a nice football player in Cleveland.